So how do you get around?
On the bike, in all kinds of weather.
How do you prepare yourself for describe the Dutch weather?
Describe the Dutch weather. The Dutch weather is not terribly dissimilar from the Irish weather, so that wasn't a big shock, except it is slightly warmer here in the summer because, well, if you come from the south of Ireland, that doesn't apply. I come from the north, and the temperature is always a bit lower there. So here, the summers are warmer, and the winters can be colder, well, that's also changing now.
Wetter.
Yeah, wetter. Well, not wetter than Northern Ireland.
Oh, never been to Northern.
Nothing much wetter than Northern Ireland, except the monsoon season. So,
okay.
and we've had a lot of wetness here in the last while, as you will have noticed. But it's been wetter than normal. The deluges we've had in Holland have been pretty exceptional.
Yeah.
So the weather is changing as well as a lot of other things in Holland. The weather seems with the climate change is also changing too.
Yeah. What do you do in your free time? How do you spend your free time?
Hang out with Faye.
And what do you guys do together?
We go out to dinner together. We shop. She's a good shopping mate. We go to workshops together. What I really like doing in my free time is dancing. I love dancing. I do belly dance. So occasionally give classes in it. Well, that's very much an occasional thing. So it's a great love of mine. I read a lot. I go to workshops quite a bit. I go to films. What else? I often wonder myself what I do with my free time. It seems to disappear so quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. And can you say anything about the shopping here? Can you find everything you need? Are there some things you've learned to live without because it just doesn't find itself
Chocolate hobnobs. But you can find them now. Things are changing. There's a lot of these expat stores where you can buy exotic things like chocolate hobnobs, which you may or not be familiar with.
No.
But once you've tasted them,
there's no turning
they
back.
tend to be addictive.
Okay.
You can get a lot of things here now anyway, so in terms of food and that, I don't really miss a lot. What I occasionally miss is a really good Irish coffee, because they do make it here, but they tend to use that stuff that looks to me like shaving cream on the top of it, and it goes flat like in sort of 2 seconds. And real Irish coffee should be made with perhaps slightly whipped cream, but then the whipped cream is cold on the top and you've got the hot coffee underneath. I can wax lyrical about a good Irish coffee.
But you can't find that here.
Well, they're not all that common. There's one or two places where you can get them, which I couldn't quite recall now if you asked me.
Yeah.
And a good pint of Guinness, which I don't drink very often, but when I do drink it, I want a really good one. And there are a couple of places, again, that you can get a really good one, but in other places there's an art to pouring Guinness, which not everybody is the master of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's typical Dutch cuisine, in your opinion?
Typical Dutch cuisine. Well, there's so many restaurants here now. But what is very typical for me, typically Dutch, is zuurkool stamppot.
And what does that contain?
That consists of mashed potatoes with sauerkraut and a large sausage. Usually accompanies that. Not necessarily. There may be thick pieces of bacon with it, but a large sausage is the usual accompaniment. Yes.
Hearty food.
It's winter weather.
Yeah.
I mean winter food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would want to warn somebody about when they're trying to move here?
Depends what their circumstances were and what they were used to living. From Ireland. The crack. Now, I'm not talking about drugs here, because the crack in Ireland has a very different meaning, and it's like the Dutch word gezellig. It's very difficult to explain in other words. It's something to do with, actually it's something similar to gezellig, but the crack is conversation. There's a lot about conversation in the crack, about having fun, laughing together and chatting and telling stories that's involved in the crack. Now this isn't a very Dutch thing, is my experience. That's partly probably to do with language, although I speak it fluently, I'm still Irish. But the crack, I would say, well, there's one thing you might miss, that you might need to meet up with other Irish people for, and that's the crack. And when you and warn them, well, don't mention crack in Amsterdam. I mean, explain what you mean when you say it, because people may associate it with something else.
So what do you definitely have to do in order to become integrated into the culture?
What do you learn the language? I think you can learn a lot about a culture without speaking the language, but you miss a lot of the subtleties. And I think the way people use language tells you a lot about the culture. So that you can't really understand a culture deeply unless you speak the language. So that's one thing I would recommend, although some people just, it's really hard for them to do, but it helps.
Yeah. You started your own business?
Yeah.
And what was that like? Was it hard? Was it difficult? What are some things that definitely you didn't expect to pop up? Or?
Well, I started my business in an unusual way, so my experiences would not probably be terribly relevant for a lot of people. But when I first came here, as I said, I worked in a factory, and in the meantime I was trying to learn the language so that I would be able to work with Dutch people. And I was also doing some training programs here and I was going over to England to do some extra training as well. Mm-hmm. I had been working as a counsellor in Ireland, and I had been teaching some groups as well, co-counselling and that kind of thing. So after a while here, having done some more training myself and having mastered the language a bit, I started giving weekend workshops. Then I did some more training, and from that training group, I people started coming to me for private sessions as a therapist, and I worked from my home for quite a long time, and it just went. I never did any publicity, never made any cards.
Did you have to sign up your business anywhere, or?
No, I didn't. At the time, I needed, of course, for the tax. They needed to know I was working for myself, so I signed up for that. But since I'm a psychologist, I didn't have to have a VAT number, a BTW number, but you have to. That I would have to register my business in that way. If you're having a commercial business, then you do need to register it with the Chamber of Commerce. But I didn't need to do that at the time. And it was very easy, really. And people just started coming to me, and word of mouth got round. And then in the first years, I worked a lot with mainly Dutch people. Then I got some English-speaking people coming to me from different parts of the world. They came, not that they flew over here especially for a session with me, but they came from different parts of the world. So the word got round then, and among the English-speaking communities in Holland. So I started getting more English-speaking people, which was great. It was nice to speak my own language again. And now I have maybe 50-50 English-speaking and Dutch-speaking. Mm. But it was sort of, in a way, a natural development. I never had worked very hard at it. Fortunately, I think it is more difficult now to set up because there are a lot more psychologists and psychotherapists around. So I started a good time.
Yeah.
When it was just becoming a little bit more acceptable, and you weren't thought so weird if you were going to therapy.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.